Most brands on Amazon are doing the same things right now, and it's the exact reason they plateaued. More ad spend, better creative, lower prices. I've watched hundreds of brands try this. At a certain level, these get completely maxed out. So what actually works? 7 moves almost nobody talks about, and we're using them right now while scaling towards $100 million in revenue this year on Amazon. I'm Jasim, Eisa, CEO and founder of Voadera, an Amazon growth partner for 8-figure brands. What you're getting today are the 7 exact levers we use internally that most sellers, even experienced ones, have never even tested. One of them is as simple as opening a support case with Amazon. The 6th lever alone has driven more growth for one of our partners than their entire PPC budget combined. The first lever has to do with supply chain. I know this is very unconventional. When you think about supply chain, you usually think about like cost centers, all that kind of stuff, but it's actually a growth engine on Amazon. And ironically, sometimes the most obvious things are kind of hidden right under our eyes. Amazon entirely, its a unique value proposition is on shipping speed. Yet when we come as sellers on Amazon, we don't consider that thoroughly enough. One thing you can think of is, yes, there's a difference between MF and FBA. The conversion rate is more. Almost everyone knows that. But actually within FBA, there's 3 tiers of shipping speed. There's same day, 1 day, and 2-day shipping speed. And the conversion rate difference between the 2-day and the 1-day shipping speed is almost 14%. And it's even more for seasonal items if someone needs, or giftable items if someone has a gift. So you could think that's just the average. So you right there, hidden under your eyes, is 16% lift. Actually, lately it's been a huge initiative for our team to make sure inventory is dispersed for all of our partners across Amazon fulfillment centers to try to get as many same-day shipping as possible. The last thing you want is someone wanting your item today and then going to a competitor and find, because Amazon's putting it, customers that saw this also saw this at the bottom of your listing, and going there because you don't have that advantage and your customer does. And we're even worse, imagine if it's a consumable, that customer and they subscribe to that competitor, they're with them for life. So it's very important to go check, put random zip codes into Amazon, see what your shipping speed is. If you already, disperse your inventory properly, work with your AGL rep, Amazon Global Logistics reps, PCP rep. But that's just something to keep in mind, that this is very underlooked and something very, very useful is just shipping speed in general. The shorter you make, even if you're MF, one product we actually did FBM for, we're doing FBM for one of our partners. They have a very large product. We moved the shipping speed from 7 days, the handling time, to 2 to 3 days. We're paying $1 or $2 extra, but our sales almost went up 30% within a week. It's crazy how much leverage the shipping speed has, and it makes sense, but it's just sometimes so obvious. Like I said, it's right under your nose, yet we miss it. And even within the supply chain, kind of a side point, now that I'm thinking about it, is even just making sure the tier for item. If your item is, for example, large tier, but you can bring it to standard size and trim off 1/2 inch for the packaging, you can reinvest that into marketing, that savings of fees, Amazon fees, and there you go, grow it again. So that's just kind of, since we're mentioning unconventional methods, we've done that in the past, but I thought I'd mention it here. The second lever is listing architecture. And this is very underlooked. Again, it's just crazy. But what does your parent listing look like, and what do the children listing looks like? And this works both ways, taking them out, making the listing have more variations or less variations. I'll start with the first one, is having it have more variations. We have one of our partners. They had 2, basically the listing, I don't want to give out their product, but their listing served very identical customers. So one customer can go here and they can also go to the other product. It's just, let's just say, for example, let's just say it was a gym bag, but it was also a gym bag that's a little bit larger, just to say sizes, even though their situation is a little more complex. So it wasn't as obvious that the listings can be merged. So again, look at your listing, see which ones can possibly be merged. Where the question our catalog team always asks, is it a possibility that someone going into this listing can buy this or that? If they're going to listing, it is possible for someone to choose a red gym bag or a black gym bag, right? That's very possible. But it's not possible for someone going to gym bag listing to go in and then suddenly want marker, right? It's almost impossible. I mean, there's coincidences obviously, but it's very unlikely. Amazon's actually getting more and more strict with what's under the same listing. So that's kind of a litmus test for users. Is it possible, just kind of your customer going in there and buying either one of these? It doesn't have to be obviously same likelihood. Black is more famous than red, right? Generally. But that's kind of the litmus test that they use. So going back to it, as we merge this listing and the sales 30 to 40% on this SKU or on this item. So Huge lift on this, and this was for a few reasons. So the two different listings, each one had 3 variations. Each one had 2,000 reviews. So 2,000 reviews here, 2,000 reviews there, and all the competitors were around 1,500. So when we combined them, the reviews became 4,000 reviews. So it's a clear winner, and it drew further there, and also gave the customers a better experience because they're going into one listing and they're kind of shopping through all the different ones. They're not having to satisfy their need for shopping to go to other listings. They're quote unquote shopping within your listing because there's so many variations that are relevant. Because if they're not relevant and they go on Gymbag and they see a marker, it just feels clunky, and it's very likely that they're going to jump off to another competitor. So again, you want to keep them there, you want to satisfy their need for shopping, and you don't want them to leave your listing, your PDP, to make sure it goes through there. And actually, since on listing, another way that you can look at this is one of our items, it went from a 4.3 star rating to 4.2, and a certain variation was actually horribly less, bringing down the reviews. So what we did, and this is again under listing architecture, is we purposely took out that listing to bring the listing back to 4.4 stars because that one had less reviews. We put on its own. We eventually killed off the SKU. It wasn't worth it. There was 15 variations. The SKU was doing almost 50 grand a month as the parent variation. So this obviously going down from 4.3 to 4.2. I already talked about this. I'll link the video at the end. But again, this is where showing on the main listing is 4 stars or 4.5 stars, and the difference between 4.3 and 4.2 is that difference on the main search page. The third lever is dynamic marketing budget allocation. And this one, I like it because it really makes it much more malleable how you spend your money. You become much more strategic with spending money. Like sometimes we need to set I'll just explain how we do it. So we set a marketing budget for our marketing team. Let's just say $1,000. Our marketing team can fully go in and use that $1,000 just for a price discount. If they feel like that's going to get us the highest return, there's a certain price break. So reducing $5 and not use anything on PPC, they can do that. And they have the flexibility to do that. At the same time, they can use it on a sponsored video rather than a sponsored product. And the idea is that you want the marketing budget allocation to be spread on what's going to get you the highest return, whether that's a price discount, a lightning deal, best deal. It's the same amount of money. What are you going to allocate it toward? And you don't have to allocate it towards one thing. Again, $1,000, you put $500 in price discount and $500 on sponsored brand or whatever. But the point is, that's how you want to think of your marketing dollars. They're soldiers. Like the CEO of Ridge, he is the Operators podcast. I really like it, actually, watch it here and there. But he says you want to think of what's the next dollar that I'm going to spend, where is that going to be the highest return? And that's why I see a lot of brands, they are $1 million brands, they spent like 30 or 40 grand on sponsored product. They want to jump into DSP. I advise them against that because you're going to get a higher return on sponsored product, bottom funnel. You still haven't tapped out your market before getting into stuff that's not as attributable and that's more top of funnel. And that's where you have to think of, okay, I have these $1,000. Where is this $1,000 going to get me the highest return? And we actually did this for a toy brand. We did a combination of a price discount. I'll link this video actually at the end as well. It's where we used a lot of the budget towards a discount because we got the badge, and we didn't almost use anything on PPC because during Black Friday they were searching for deals and we'd rather make it show as a deal, and it was sponsored in a few places organically by having that, and we just saw it give us a higher return putting in a price discount compared to spending that much on marketing. We still spent a little bit on marketing, but much of the budget was allocated to coupons and price discounts. The fourth lever is expanding marketing positioning. And I'll mention an example here, but the primary concept within this is basically you want to expand to the largest market possible. You want to appeal to the most amount of customers possible. But a huge caveat here is you want to make sure your product is mature. If you only have, let's just say, for example, let's just say this right here, a mug, right? If I just launched it, I'm going to appeal for 25-year-old men sitting on a desk, and I'm going to design it that way. I'm going to put the pictures that way so I can win in that specific niche. But as I get more mature, I just want a general mug that has much more customers. I have more reviews. I have more ratings. I can compete in that. So one example is we had one partner, they do self-shaving products. So it's like a mirror. And you can see yourself more, and basically you get more surface area to see yourself. And what we notice is that we mature this market, we got a lot of reviews. Let's instead try to go into a bigger market while we still keep this one and expand the messaging and positioning to also appeal to women putting on makeup because they need to see themselves more kind of larger coverage. And we did that and it grew sales by almost 15 or 20%. So look at your product market positioning. Is there a larger market you can go vertically to expand that positioning? And I'm not speaking about premium positioning instead of value-based. That's obviously something you should always go after when we're talking, since we mentioned positioning. But again, this is just expanding your total addressable market and going to something that's a little bit larger. Again, maybe even like Poppy, when the initial launch was for healthy, etc., etc., etc. Now it's just competing against Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And that's why they got acquired for so much. So that's a more mainstream example. The fifth lever is intent-based SEO. And this is actually one of the more common changes that happened with Amazon's latest AI shift. Is the fifth lever is intent-based SEO. This is actually one of the most impactful changes that happened with Amazon's latest updates with AI, is obviously introducing Rufus. And the E9 algorithm is it's encouraging more intent-based SEO. When you're asking Rufus a question, are you getting an answer for what you want? I'll give an example. We had an ice pack before. I mean, we were talking like, let's say 2018, 2019. You want to say ice packs for men, ice pack, ice pack. You want to say it like 30, 40 times and the bullet points, all that kind of stuff. But now Amazon's algorithm is much more intelligent, right? So that same product, we're doing post-surgery recovery or after a sports injury for children, right? So we're writing what the intent of that product is. So when Rufus asks the question like, hey, I just had a surgery for my shoulder, is this a good product? So we purposely have in our bullet point, post-surgery recovery for shoulder relocation or whatever. We have that in there. So when they ask Rufus that question, it looks at our listing and it pulls that data and answers them, hopefully, and addresses that. And not only that, we also put it as callouts in our images because Amazon now also reads the images. So this is obviously something that's been newer over the past year or two. So this is where we're changing a lot of our SEO to be very intent-based. What is the customer trying to get to? What are we trying to address? And we feed that into Amazon's backend text, the bullet points, the pictures. Hopefully we get reviews on that. That's how we're addressing it. The sixth lever is LTV, lifetime value. And the reason that I mentioned lifetime value is because a lot of people don't associate lifetime value with Amazon. They see it as a one-time purchase, and they see that that's simply for Shopify where you control your customer journey. But actually, I'm here to challenge it. And lifetime value obviously falls into two buckets. You have average order value, and then we have purchase frequency. So you want to make the average order value higher. You can do that a lot of ways. You can either go in to see what customers are buying with your products. You can go to Seller Central, look at the multi-basket analysis, see customers are on the back end, see what customers are buying with your product. You can add those to your listings or have Amazon recommend them. And other ways you can do is obviously if you buy two, get the third one for free. Or if you're, if you buy three, you get 15% off. If you buy four, you get 20% off. Another one is appealing to the business buyer to get that higher order, manage quotes, you get RFPs for your products. And then on the other hand, you have reorders. And this is where you're using subscribe and save coupons. The most common one is for even within subscribe and save coupons, you should also be testing reordering coupons. So there are two different things. A lot of people said they don't have an initial coupon, and this is one of the lowest hanging fruits that we just jump in and we immediately check for is, do you have a subscribe and save coupon turned on? And to encourage customers to do the initial subscription and hopefully be with you for the long run. And even within subscribe and save coupon, you can do testing for what's bringing you the highest CAC to LTV. One example is we had a $40 product. We initially had a 20% coupon on it. So we noticed that we're getting around 100 subscribers a month. We changed it to an $8 coupon. We actually started getting 125 subscribers per month. And that's the same exact coupon, dollar amount, but one of them was getting us a higher return. So not only that, once we did that, we said, okay, let's see, $9, okay, gets us 130. Is that worth it? No, it's not really worth it, the extra buck, let's put it back in there. But at least you start measuring where is a sweet spot to get the highest bang for your buck for your product specifically. And just again, the first thing that all starts with is understanding and changing your mindset that LTV exists within Amazon, and then accordingly addressing that, making your AOV higher. How can you make customers buy more, adding to your variations, adding like stuff they can buy with. But then even within that is obviously reordering and subscriptions and all that kind of stuff. I also actually made a video on LTV. I'll also attach it at the end of this video. The seventh lever is prepping before the season start. And this is the one we liked a lot. It's kind of like a little bit of a hack. Who knows how long it'll stay along, but it's been actually fairly helpful and big boost for us. Is if some of our partners' items are seasonal. One of them, for example, they sell toys. What we do is we start prepping in September. A lot of people are going to say September's early. I agree. But what we're trying to do is get badges. We're trying to get the bestseller badge, Amazon Choice badge. Why we're trying to get them done? Because it's much cheaper and much less competitive. Where the CPCs then are $1. Maybe in season they're $3 or $4, right? Cost per click. So we always try to beat that momentum, get the badges before the season, and we've found a lot of times that they stick with us all the way through. So a lot of times if we have something, let's say a Mother's Day season or Easter or whatever, we look in a few weeks before, even sometimes a few months, depending on how competitive it is, and we try to become the best seller. We try to improve our offer, we lower prices, and again, like you have to think about this. Like here's how I'll explain it. We had an item, right? It's a seasonal item. We lowered the price from 40 to $30, and we became the best seller in that niche. But also the whole niche, the $30, we weren't making money at that price point, but we're only selling 100 items before season. In season, it sells 1,000. So not only, so let's say 100 times 10, that costs us what? $1,000. But if we did that same move in season, the 100 times 1,000, that's much more significant. What is that? That's 100 grand. But yet we were able to do it before. We were able to get the badges and coast through a lot of the seasonal period with that additional leverage, with that additional badges, because those stuck with us and it helped conversion throughout. If you're a brand doing over $1 million a year and you found this helpful, come to Voadera.com, apply for a partnership. Let's see if we're a good fit for each other. Otherwise, check out these 2 videos.